Okay, what's going on, everybody? We are here. We're alive. I want to thank you all for joining me today. If you can see and hear me clearly, please drop a 1 in the live chat, and then we can get today's stream started as I'm waiting for the ones to come into the live chat. If you haven't yet, please hit the like button because that's the most important thing you can do for me on this channel. What it does, that helps to make sure that those who are subscribed to the channel will indeed get their notifications, and it also helps to push this video through the YouTube algorithm as well. Secondly, if you're new to the channel, or maybe you've been ghost watching this channel for quite some time now, please do me a favor and yourself a favor by hitting the subscribe button, as well as the bell notification next to the subscribe button so you get notified whenever I release a new video. And lastly, please make sure you share this video out on your social media platforms as well, to your family and friends, to push this information to them and to also help me get a slight boost in the YouTube algorithm as well. I kind of fumbled that last part, but if you've been subscribed to me long enough, you know what to do. With all that being said, man, you can all see and hear me clearly. So let's get into today's stream. Let's get the show started. And oh yeah, lastly, please make sure you follow me on Rumble and Telegram. The link is in the description box below as well. So let's jump into this, man. I saw this video. I came across this and I did want to take a moment to speak on it. And it's this video of Joy Reid just kind of spewing a bunch of nonsense concerning Donald Trump speaking about those from the Congo that are being brought into the United States, possibly having some ties to those in the Congo who have been recently released from prison, right? He brought attention to that. This isn't the first time he's brought attention to something like that before in the past, and we'll get into that. And he was right about it the first time around. But with all due, just getting that out the way here, let me just pull this video up. And for the record, I'm a little foggy right now. I got two wisdom teeth pulled out like 2 days ago. And my head is still hurting for some reason. I can't seem to get rid of this headache ever since then. So I'm a little foggy. So just help me out. If I go Joe Biden on you, help me out. Okay, just for this one time. If I go Joe Biden on you, I start just staring into the screen with my mouth open. I got a little headache. I'm a little bit out of it. But let's get into it.
So, hey fam. So Donald Trump's new thing is he is now fixating on the Congo.
We're not just talking about South America. All over the world, the Congo and Africa, many people are coming out of the Congo, and they're coming from jails in the Congo. So their jails are being emptied, the mental institutions are being emptied, and they're all coming to the USA. But people are coming from the Congo. Last night, we had 20 people come. Welcome to our country from the Congo. Where do you live in the Congo? We live in prison. Oh, that's right. Go there. Elon, what's happened is unbelievable. You have from Africa, from the Congo, they're coming, from the Congo. And 22 people came in from the Congo recently, and they're murderers. And they drop them. They take them out of jails, which is very expensive, to maintain the jails. Although they don't do too much maintaining, I can tell you. But they take them out of jails, prisons. They take them out and they bring them to the United States. They deposit them in the United States and say, don't ever come back or you're going to be executed. And they're coming from the Congo. They're coming from Africa. They're coming from the Middle East. They're coming from all over the world. Asia, a lot of it coming from Asia. And what's happening to our country is we're just destroying the fabric of life in our country, and we're not going to take it any longer, and you got to get rid of these people.
All right, before Joy Reid goes on her just unhinged rant about nothing, where is this coming from? First and foremost, is this coming out of nowhere? Is it coming out of the clear blue sky? Is this just some like conspiracy theory nonsense that Trump is just kind of making up, or he's getting from his conspiracy theory friends that he's surrounded by? No, it's not coming out of nowhere. People within the Congo, many have been released from prison recently, a lot. And what I want to do right now is that I want to play a quick news clip. I believe it's from France 24. where they speak about it. It's about roughly maybe about 2 minutes long. I'm not going to interrupt it. I'm just going to let it play. But I just want to make sure to highlight the fact that this isn't coming out of nowhere. This isn't coming out of nowhere. And we've heard this story before, and we'll get to that in a moment. But here is the quick clip from France 24.
Streamed out of Kinshasa.
You rewind it back just a little bit.
Emaciated prisoners streamed out of Kinshasa's central prison after being freed. Some jumped for joy, but others were barely able to walk due to the festering open wounds on their arms and legs. A few of the prisoners were carried out in wheelbarrows. Known informally as Makala, the prison has become a byword for inhumane detention conditions in DR Congo. But the sight of the agonized prisoners still caused a shock in the country. DR Congo's justice minister ordered the release of 1,685 ill prisoners in a televised spectacle over the weekend in a bid to tackle overcrowding. The move came after 131 inmates lost their lives in an attempted jailbreak earlier this month, when many of the victims suffocated to death in a crush.
The head of state took pity on you. Therefore, he gave me the power to free you. Do you understand? Yes, it's to enable the government action plan to be implemented. We are decongesting the prisons and rehabilitating them all.
Justice Minister Constant Mutamba had promised to reduce overcrowding in Congolese prisons almost immediately after taking office in June. Makala, which was designed in the colonial era for about 1,500 prisoners, currently holds about 12,000. The government has admitted that the overcrowding contributed to the large death toll earlier this month. According to rights groups, most of the inmates are being held in pre-trial detention. Many struggle to access food and healthcare once inside.
So once again, when Trump's saying this stuff, it's not coming from nowhere. It's not coming from like out of the clear blue sky. And also, like I said earlier, we heard this story before. It was not too long ago, a few years back, when he was very clear on Venezuelans escaping from prison, being released from prison, their criminals and their gang members being released. And now we have this migrant crisis happening where they're all flooding into the United States. We were told that this was hate speech, this was dangerous rhetoric, it was xenophobic, it was racist, and then surprise, surprise, what do you know? Here we are. This right here is an article from KTLA. That's a local Los Angeles news outlet. And the article reads, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but there's the title of it here, Tren de Aragua, gang started in Venezuela's prisons and now spreads fear in the U.S. I mean, come on, man. Like we've heard this story before, and the first time around when he warned us about this, we were told that these were xenophobic, racist lies that weren't true, that it was conspiracy theory nonsense. And now here we are, and in a city near you, you're dealing with Tren de Aragua, a gang that did not exist in America until Biden and Harris's migrant crisis. So now here he is again, fast forward, 4 years later, and he's sounding the alarm concerning the same situation that's going on in the Congo. And we're getting the same repetitive, this is xenophobic, this is racist talk all over again. And I'm going to say this, if he was right the first time around with Tren de Aragua, I'm going to assume that he might be on to something concerning what's happening in the Congo. I think it's safe to say that at this point. But let's let Joy Reid go on her joyless rant. So we're going to get back to her right now. Let's jump back into that video.
So why do you suppose he's doing that? I have an answer. What Trump and Vance are doing, and right now Donald Trump, let's talk about him. What he's doing is he's focusing on individual, fairly mono-ethnic, mono-racial countries that are not white, right? So the Congo, Venezuela, and he just broadly says Asia because he probably couldn't think of China in the moment because his brain is broken.
So he's retarded. He's focusing on, I believe she said, mono-ethnic countries that are majority non-white. Since the migrant crisis has begun, it's literally been overwhelmingly South American countries, overwhelmingly Hispanics that have been crossing the border coming into the US since the migrant crisis started. And by and large, once you go outside of South America, yes, it's literally everybody else from Africa, from the Caribbeans, from the Middle East, and from Asia. There are little to no Europeans coming over here. So she's making a very dishonest and kind of deceptive statement right now, where she's saying that he's focusing on, non-white countries as it pertains to their citizens now pouring over the country, pouring over the border over here, when in fact, that's just literally, for the most part, has always been the case as it pertains to illegal immigration. And now with the migrant crisis, I'll submit this to you here as a piece of evidence. Many of you have seen that I brought this up before in the past. This is the official count, and it's definitely outdated now, but it's the official count of illegal immigrants in the United States for many years. We've heard that 11 million number. That 11 million is 11 million illegal immigrants in the country. Obviously, that number has ballooned up since the migrant crisis began. I never went by that 11 million number. I always went by the independent Yale study, where they came to the conclusion with their study at Yale that there were actually roughly around 20 to 22 million illegal immigrants in the country. So if you're going off of the Yale study, which I side with, which is about 20 to 22 million, and then you take into account the conservative estimate that there has been roughly around 10 to 12 million illegal immigrants that have crossed the border, and once again, that's a roughly conservative estimate, then we're looking at anywhere between 30 and 34 million illegal immigrants that are in the country right now, right? But that aside, if we're just going on the original numbers, right? We're going on the original numbers of, we can say now, maybe 4 years ago when it applied. Look at this here. Just going back to Europeans, right? Mexico and Central America and South America, right? 67%, 8%. That makes 75%. So 75% of illegal immigrants in the United States prior to the migrant crisis were Hispanic. The Caribbean, 3%, Africa, 3%. So 6% of illegal immigrants in America prior to the migrant crisis were Black immigrants. Asia, 15% of illegal immigrants prior to the migrant crisis were Asian. How many percent of illegal immigrants were European, Canadian, or from Oceania prior to the migrant crisis? 4%. 4%. That's it. There are no European illegal immigrants in the country for the most part, in comparison to everybody else, and particularly the Hispanic population of illegal immigrants. So when she's saying that, she's being very deceptive and just intentionally sending people off. You're just intentionally sending people off in order to create a situation in which you can say that this is something racist that's going on, that's being said by Donald Trump, when in fact, the statements that he's making is based on actual facts. There's evidence that backs this stuff up, but you're not going to get that from Joyless Reid. But that out the way, let's get back into her unhinged rant right now. Let's go back into what she's saying.
He's fixating on these individual countries the same way he did with Mexico when he was running in 2016, and demonizing those people as a way of simply saying that Black and brown and non-white people in general are monsters, are savages, are brutes, are violent, are terrifying, are criminals.
That's literally not what he was saying. When he stated the stuff about the prisons, what was it, 4 years ago or so, he literally spoke on Venezuela and Venezuela only. And, once again, I'll pull the article up again, as we all know, concerning Terrain de Aragua. Here we are, right? Here we are. Now he's specifically focusing on the Congo. It's not about Hispanics or Black and brown overall. He's very clear in his speech when he's articulating this kind of stuff concerning those who are being released from prison and now entering into the country. It's very specific. It's not about any type of Black or brown issue or Black or white issue. That's Joy Reid that's making it into that, to ensure that the DNC will get their usual 90% of the Black vote come November 5th.
Who came out of a mental institution, so that he can make the case that they must be mass deported and they should be feared and hated by white voters and by whatever minority voters have signed up for the project, the Mark Robinson style, voters who think that Blacks were better off during Jim Crow, the Byron Donalds, Mark Robinson coterie.
She's lying once again. All right. She's lying once again. And now, mind you, I'm no Mark Robinson fan. I personally don't care for the man myself personally. I don't like Mark Robinson. But as far as what she's saying in relation to Byron Donalds and Mark Robinson, she is telling a lie. No one ever said that Black people were better off during Jim Crow. That has never came out of anyone's mouth. This is the direct quote that she's referring to right here from this article. And this article was, written in an attempt to, make Mark Robinson look bad, which he does a really good job of doing that on his own, honestly. But as it pertains specifically, if we're taking his words in context as it relates to the discussion that we're having right now, you're lying on this man to validate a false statement that you're making. This article reads, and I'm only going to give you the first two paragraphs, North Carolina gubernatorial candidate and current Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, already under fire for a series of racist remarks, once waxed nostalgically about the Jim Crow era of intense segregation. This is what he said. During Jim Crow, you can go back and you can look at it, and the record will show that's when Black folks were at their highest in the country, Robinson said in a speech in 2020. When the times were the toughest, that's when they were the highest. And why? Because they knew they had to rely on themselves. If you watch that video that I have right here in its totality, it's only about 4 minutes long. He was literally preaching Black empowerment and Black togetherness. Now, I know that sounds crazy to some people coming from Mark Robinson, but that's what he was doing in that particular speech. He was literally Matter of fact, I'm just going to play it for you guys because I do have it. And I wasn't going to play it at first for the sake of time, but I'm going to play it now. I'm going to pull it up right now. Give me just a second because I want you to hear what he was saying for himself, right? And for those of you who are vote blue no matter who is, and you can take what I'm saying out of context and just say, oh, he's justifying Mark Robinson who says this, that, and the third. No, I'm using his words in context as it relates to the statement that Joy Reid is making, in which she's lying on him in order to validate false statements on Donald Trump. So let's actually watch what Mark Robinson said in context.
Anybody who's ever read a history book knows the story of Black people in this nation. And here it is. The very first experience for Black people coming to this nation was something called the Middle Passage. We were packed into ships like cattle. Down in the belly of those ships, there was no welfare programs in the belly of those ships. There were no social justice warriors in the belly of those ships. There were no Joe Bidens and Kamala Harris in the bellies of those ships. The only people we had to rely on in that Middle Passage, in the belly of those ships, was ourselves. It was up to us to survive in the belly of those ships. And here it is. We did it. We survived that Middle Passage. And why did Black people survive the Middle Passage? Because Black people are a powerful people.
Now, if you let Joy Reid tell it, what he just did was glorify the Middle Passage, and he just stated that Black people were better off on the Middle Passage. If you let Joy Reid tell it, right? But that's not what he said. Clearly, he didn't say that. Now I'm going to let it continue on until it gets to the part that Joy Reid is talking about.
We are a powerful people. We survived that Middle Passage on our own. We didn't need Congress to pass some legislation to get through those troubling times. We didn't need Don Lemon and CNN to come out and do a commentary. What we relied on was our strength and our faith, and it pulled us through. And so we survived that Middle Passage. Once we got to this nation, what we had in store for us wasn't much better. We ended up on plantations. After that cotton gin was invented, slavery became mechanized. We ended up on those slave plantations, those cotton plantations, working in those fields, working in those homes. And again, who was it that we relied on the slave plantations? Weren't no social programs, wasn't no welfare checks. There was mama, there was daddy, there was children. And even in the midst of the storm, we relied on one another and we relied on God Almighty. And we survived the slave plantations.
Once again, if you let Joy Reid tell it based off what he said, you heard what he said. But if you let Joy Reid tell it, well, what he really said is that black people were better off during slavery. But that's clearly not what he said. Now let's get to the part that Joy Reid misquoted.
Because we understood what was important. Got off the slave plantation, the next trial we had to go through was something called Jim Crow. Had to go to separate drinking fountains. Had to go around to the back of the buildings like some kind of subhuman. Couldn't halfway vote. Couldn't halfway have a voice. Everything was separated by race. Now I want you to look at the way what we did in those days. No social programs, no social directives from the government telling us that this stuff wasn't right. Who did we have to rely on again during Jim Crow? Who is it that black people had to rely on when they were facing extreme racism? When they were facing the Ku Klux Klan and the Black League, when the sheriff was an open member of the Ku Klux Klan, when you couldn't go down to the local business and get a job because you were the wrong color. Who do they rely on? We relied on each other. Mama, daddy, children, and God. That's who we relied on. And through each one of those three stages, you look at what happened. The middle passage, we were at our lowest point. We raised ourselves up just a little bit more on that slave plantation. But during Jim Crow, you can go back and you can look at it and the record will show you. That's when black folks were at their highest in this country. When the times were the toughest, that's when they were highest. And why? Because they knew they had to rely on themselves.
So that's what he stated in context. Joy Reid lied about what he stated because he's an easy target to lie on. Mark Robinson says a whole bunch of silly stuff, to say the very least. And once again, I'm not a fan of the guy, but she lied on him, took what he said out of context because he's an easy target to lie on. Because when someone's an easy target to lie on, even if they're telling the truth one time or the other, nobody wants to hear it. But she lied and took what he said out of context to justify her false statements concerning what Trump is talking about with prisoners being released from the Congo and now possibly coming into the U.S. So now let's get back into what Joy Reid had to say.
And the Amber Rose group who think racism isn't real because Donald Trump is awesome or whatever. But he's literally, and whatever rappers are on board, right? This actually is the worst, the most gut bucket, straight up, vulgar racism as a political strategy that I've ever seen. It's worse than the birther stuff. The birther stuff was vile and gross. This is worse than that. It's worse than when George Herbert Walker Bush did Willie Horton. It's just worse because this is just straight up in your face, no chaser racism. He's just.
If you let Joy Reid tell it, we still live in 1792. I'm pretty sure the racism that were coming from politicians throughout the time of chattel slavery and Jim Crow in America was significantly worse than whatever comes out of Donald Trump's mouth. But if you let Joy Reid tell it, we still live in 1792.
It's essentially saying black people aren't human. They're monsters. They're demons, and we're gonna deport them all. And in J.D. Vance's his take is that he's even pretending he doesn't know the name of Haiti. It's now the Haitian. And he's demonizing Haitians so viciously that it's causing terrorist attacks against them. It's causing bomb threats against them.
That's a lie. You're lying. There are no attacks that have happened to Haitians in Springfield. That has not happened at all whatsoever. And you see, this woman can't stop lying. That has not happened at all whatsoever. Now, what I find very interesting is that we can actually count the bodies as it pertains to how many illegal immigrants have taken the lives of American citizens from New York to LA, where I am. We could actually count the number of bodies, and we could actually trace them to those who came into the country under Biden's watch, under his and Harris's migrant crisis. We could actually count those bodies up, but she won't talk about that. Now, will she? But what she will do is lie about attacks on Haitians in Springfield. That is not happening, right? That did not happen. And on top of that, the governor of the state of Ohio already came out and said that the bomb threats were a hoax. They weren't real.
We have received at least 33 separate bomb threats, each one of which has been responded to, and each one of whom has been found as a hoax. So 33 threats, 33 hoax. I want to make that very, very clear. None of these had any validity at all.
But she won't speak to that, will she? Absolutely not. Instead, she'll talk about fake threats and attacks that did not happen on Haitians in Springfield, while completely ignoring actual attacks and the bodies and loss of life that we actually can count by the hand of illegal immigrants who actually came in the country under the Harris-Biden administration. She won't speak to that, but she will speak to fake attacks that did not happen. Just let that sit on your mind for a moment concerning how dishonest this woman actually is.
But he's like, fine, no problem. We're going to just demonize this whole collective group of people, put them at risk and jeopardy so that he can have a case for deportation, even though
he had a case for deportation long before anybody knew about Springfield.
These people,
before anybody knew about Springfield, the polls were already coming out showing that half of the country, slightly over half the country, were in favor of mass deportations long before anybody knew anything about Springfield. So that's a lie also.
People are here with green cards, but he's like pretending he doesn't even know that. He's a United States senator who pretends he does not understand that people with green cards can't be deported. He's just going to say they're illegals, quote unquote, anyway, regardless of their status, because he just wants to demonize and make a hate object out of these black people. And Donald Trump is now.
Mind you, notice how she's making it a point to keep saying black people, but not black migrants, black immigrants. That's very, as I like to say, that's that tricknology. That's that tricknology she's running on you. She just keeps referring to them as black people because that's how she draws you in. Okay, that's how she brings you in so that you feel like it's an attack on you when it's not. There is no attack on you as a black person or as a black American in the United States, as a black citizen of the United States. There is no attack on you, but she's using that tricknology on you again. Watch out for the tricknology. She doesn't say black immigrants. She doesn't say black migrants. She just keeps saying black people. That's how she lures you in to get you to go vote blue no matter who.
Joining in and upping the ante and adding the Congo. That's all they're doing. This is not creative racism. At least birtherism was creative racism. This isn't even creative. This is just gut.
That gave me like Joker vibes, didn't it? Look at her face. Lord have mercy. Wow, I should have put that as a thumbnail. What minute mark is it? 4 minutes and 34 seconds. I'm going to use this later. Hold on. 4 minutes and 34 seconds. Okay. I'm going to use that for something later. Lord have mercy. But she gave me like Joker vibes just now. Let me rewind that back just a little bit. When she laughed, that quick little devious laughter.
Understand that people with green cards can't be deported. He's just going to say they're illegals, quote unquote, anyway, regardless of their status, because he just wants to demonize and make a hate object out of these black people. And Donald Trump is now joining in and upping the ante and adding the Congo. That's all they're doing. This is not creative racism. You know, at least birtherism was creative racism. This isn't even creative. This is just gut bucket, gross, straight up racism. And if this is successful in this election, what is that going to say about this country?
It's going to say that we can afford groceries again, and that your money will, you know, stretch longer and work for you longer again. It'll mean that you'll be able to afford houses again. It'll mean that you'll be able to afford to just live and go outside again. The same thing it meant the first 4 years that he was in office, because people act like he wasn't the president for 4 years already. Like we didn't live under a Trump presidency for 4 years already. How do you remember? Think to this to yourself right now. How was life for you financially and economically under 4 years of Trump versus 4 years of Harris and Biden? Let that sit on your mind for a minute and really think about that for a second.
What is that going to say about this country's voters? If this kind of gross, disgusting racism is successful, or if Mark Robinson, with all of the problems that he now clearly has, if that's successful in North Carolina, God help us.
You see how she keeps focusing on Mark Robinson? Because like I said earlier, he's an easy target. I mean, the guy is a whack job, in my opinion. I don't care for the guy myself, but she keeps focusing on him and not Byron Donalds, even though she brought him up, making that same claim that he made a statement that black people were better off during Jim Crow, which he didn't say, but she's focusing on Byron Donalds, because once again, that's just an easy target. When you have somebody kind of that's off the walls as Mark Robinson is, it's an easy target to just lie on him and it'll stick, because he kind of always says crazy stuff. And once again, look at her face. Lord have mercy. And she's wearing makeup too. That's what's crazy. She's wearing makeup and still looks like this. Wow. Okay. We're almost finished, guys. We're almost finished.
As a country, if this form of open gutter bucket racism is successful as a political strategy, we're doomed, fam. So if you are a person of color, because you're being targeted, or if you are a white person with morals and who doesn't want
What people of color are being targeted? I don't know what she's talking about right now.
to be associated with this hot garbage, and you're offended by the assumption that you're so silly and racist that you'll jump on board with this, all of y'all normies need to get your voter registration together and get to.
She literally just disrespected the very people that she's trying to get out and vote for Kamala Harris. And look at her face. Wow. She just referred to the people that she's trying to get to vote for Harris as normies. No, calling someone a normie is like disrespectful on the internet. When you're calling someone a normie, you're borderline calling them stupid at that point. You're borderline calling them stupid, because that means you're just the thought of being a normie, for those of you who don't know, essentially like you're somebody who just like believes, you get all your news from CNN and MSNBC, and you just believe them. You know, you just believe what they're saying, right? Whatever the state tells you, the state is always correct. The state is always right. You know, mainstream media, it's always correct. It's always right, right? And you don't have a mind of your own. You're not able to think for your own. You're not able to research for your own. You don't look into anything. It's just whatever Joy Reid tells you, she's correct. So the very people that she's trying to reach and talk to who already listen to her, she just disrespected them to their face by calling them normies. And I'll just blow this up one more time just so you can see her face. Lord have mercy. Once again, she has makeup on. Looks like Bozo the Clown. Looks like Bozo the Clown.
Voting's already begun in some states. If check your registration and check and find out when early voting starts, and do it now rather than later. Do it sooner rather than later, Poppy and Mommy, because boy, oh boy, we in for it. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Y'all be good. Peace.
Probably one of the most unintelligent, if not the most unintelligent TED Talk that I've ever heard in my life. Shout out to, and you know I can't read names, Chansey Marsh, Chancey Marsh, and you know I'm not reading those Roman numbers. I'm not reading those Roman numerals. Is that what it's called? Roman numerals? You know I don't know what that is, let alone can I read people's names. But Chancey, I hope I don't sound too stupid if I'm saying it right. I appreciate you for showing love on today's stream with the super chat. I definitely appreciate all the support that I get on this channel. It does not go unnoticed. Well, that does it for today. I really just wanted to bring, Bozo the Clown to you guys one time, because when I heard this the first time around, I just said to myself, let me speak on this real quick, because there's so many kind of lies and disingenuous, just untrue statements that's being made here that were so easy to pick apart, that I said to myself, well, let me go ahead and go live about this right now and bring this up to people. And so they know the truth and they see what's really going on, especially concerning that news clip that we saw about what's actually going on and what's actually happening in the Congo concerning prisoners actually being released from prisons in the Congo. Once again, that's not something that Trump has pulled out of nowhere, right? He's not just saying it just to be saying it. It's not conspiracy theory nonsense. This is an actual thing that's going on. So I just wanted to make sure that we're not getting duped and tricked, with all that technology that she's spitting. I want to make sure that doesn't work on us and have us, just rushing to the polls, voting blue, no matter who, to our own demise. So with all that being said, I want to thank you guys, man. Thank you very much once again, Chancey, if I'm saying your name right. Thank you very much, Coco G, for the super sticker. I appreciate you. And thank you very much, the Geek Surgeon, for always coming through. He said, Joyless Reid is an idiot. We ain't got time to tarry. I'll hit you with the we ain't got time to tarry one time. The Geek Surgeon, because we definitely ain't got time. And I ain't got time right now. If you haven't noticed yet, I'm starting to break a sweat in here, even with the fan on me. So I'm trying to get out of here because
see everything else. I don't care about none of that. I ain't got time to tarry.
I ain't got time to tarry no more. Okay, I'm finished and I'm done. And shout out to Black Spider for coming through with the buzzer beater. I appreciate you all for the support, man. I will catch you guys later. Have a great and safe weekend. Peace and have a good night.